me that I always wanted to know whose hands it was in during the show. But alas, it was like the Golden Tiger Clause, a game-breaking Shengon Blue that the writers knew that they had to keep out of the story to keep any sort of tension, which kinda made me worry about when it would pop up again. Every time the Shengon Blue changed hands, like in the very next episode, I wanted to know where the hell this thing was. And then it finally popped up, and it was disappointing, to say the least.
What is that?
Shit, I just throw it in the deep fryer.
Oh, you're the chef, Parker.
Oh, okay.
That is why I was delighted to get right into the night. If I may give you such a fright, you know I surely would.
I'm just gonna let this one speak for itself. Remember what I said? As long as the episode doesn't specifically take place on a Halloween-type holiday, it's allowed. Plus, if there were none of my rules, I'd go with Jack in the Haunted House. I believe that episode is much more disturbing than this one, but this one is really disturbing too, for the same reason that That's Life is kind of disturbing. Jack walks into a haunted graveyard and must fight off zombies. That's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, why I don't talk about the show too often, except in, like, lists or something, is because it's very hard to talk about an individual episode. In this episode, Samurai Jack fights zombies all night, and since they're pretty much infinite, they begin to slowly whittle him down. Not to mention, there's the final showdown where he's fighting his own sword, and the feeling of helplessness is really instilled in this episode.
Important. Looks like all the power lines from the dam's hydroelectric plant are being routed down there. To a building that isn't even on the blueprints.
Hey, would you look at that? More zombies. This time, instead of fighting them in the graveyard, we get to see a full outbreak take place.
What do you mean?
Like, alien equivalent of a full moon. Never know what kind of trouble might brew.
Okay, exhibit Stataway.
Side trip. Could use an Egyptologist.
Starts out, innocently enough, Gumball and Darwin are a bit grumpy, so their father gives them a special hug to cheer them up. That came out wrong. But back on track, their teacher thinks that this happiness is some kind of disease.
Okay.
Read us a story.
And keep it down to a low growl.
Hieroglyphics from the Old Kingdom, 3500 BC. To release the demon within is to doom the world.
Any mention of Sir Clarion?
That's the ancient name of the magical scepter the mummy will use to bring death, destruction, and pestilence. If you believe in that kind of mumbo-jumbo.
Thinks that Miss Simeon is crazy until it actually turns out to be a disease.
Spectrometer shows traces of alien DNA. We'll type it back at the lab.
Shouldn't be too hard to find a walking roll of gauze.
That kills Gumball and Darwin and turns them into joy-infused zombies with rainbow drool. I always knew that joy was contagious, but Jesus. The only way to stop this zombie outbreak is by playing a piece of music. The majority of the episode is Miss Simeon racing to get to the PA system past these zombies, and the tone is really good here. I should really talk about this show sometime in the future.
Something giving you the heebie-jeebies? Hyperion in Mummy's clothing. Hyperion? Here? You sure? Positive. should prepare for question. What will you share in this night? That would be my only question.
It feels odd that I'm suggesting one of my least favorite episodes from a show for this list, but Dan versus the Telemarketer fits the criteria. What do I mean by this? This episode is a sequel to the episode Dan versus the Imposter, or Dan versus Dan, where someone who looked exactly like Dan tried to take over his life, and Dan solved this problem by sending him to jail. Now he's back, and he wants nothing more than revenge. His plan is fucking terrifying. First, the imposter gets a job as a telemarketer, and then pretty much uses his position to stalk and harass Dan, preventing him from getting any peace or even sleeping. If it ended there, that would be one thing, but the imposter's plan is so much more complex. He knows at every step that Dan is going to make, to the point where he can make a supervillain blush, and that's because he disguised himself as Dan's cat, Mr. Mumbles.
Sapphire Dragon! The most dangerous Shingon Wu. It is only to be used as an absolute last resort. It will turn your enemy into a sapphire statue. And the guy next door, the old lady down the street, the kids at the playground.
It turns everyone, good, evil, or indifferent, to sapphire.
And after implanting the tracking device in Dan's teeth, that tracking device also transmits voices.
Sir, we will give this matter all...
Eye of Dashi!
Sorry, monk boy. This one's mine.
I was here first!
Too bad. Hey, what's with the glowing?
It is a Shaolin showdown.
So yeah, if you think that telemarketers are annoying, imagine one being in your head, never shutting off for 24/7. And when you try to tell someone of this, they think you've gone completely insane. You know, until this conspiracy against you does drive you completely insane.
Don't care, don't want to know how, just make him gone.
Whoa! I cannot fight with this heavy garment! Let's tiptoe into the dark. One good scare out of you.
When a show changes its age rating, it truly is a magical thing. The shows with this newfound freedom tend to stretch their tendrils out and do whatever they can now get away with. And the punchline is lesson zero. If any episode can prove that friendship is magic isn't your typical Friends Forever kids show, then none of them will do it. The entire tone of this episode is intense, as one of the characters delves slower and slower into their own insanity, to the point where she telefrags the beach ball and...
Frank, get away from me.
Very educational.
Are you sure this is a kid show? If it's not the smartest, most honorable of the main characters cornering three kids with threats that she is going to help them and solve their problems, it's the most timid of the main cast snapping the neck of a bear. I've always had mixed feelings towards the Kids Next Door episode Operation Archive. It goes on to tell how kids created adults and the wars that sparked in between them, with number one narrating it. I like the story that it tells, and I definitely love the homage. It would actually be kind of interesting if they went with this as a full series idea, but it's actually an episode like that 90s show from The Simpsons. You gotta take it separately from any continuity of the show to enjoy it in its own right, because there's no logical way that it could have happened. It also ends like this.
I can't tell the truth. If you don't, your shame will consume you. Consume you! Consume you!
Find a daily grinder, try to touch it on the mind to help unwind it, so inclined I have a small suggestion.
To tell you the truth, I could have gone with any episode where Ren gets mad. Even ignoring his cute little upbringing, he is not the most sane of characters. In this episode, Ren and Stimpy get a bunch of fan mail. Correction! Stimpy gets a ton of fan mail, and Ren gets none whatsoever. This leaves Ren practically distraught.
We're forced together. We're forced to fuse. This is wrong. I'm sorry. No, Garnet! You're coming undone! Garnet!
Paradox! 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 In order to cheer Ren up, Stimpy Stimpy makes him the president of his fan club. This doesn't turn out to be the best idea. All the fans have only good things to say about Stimpy, and only bad things to say about Ren, which slowly makes him madder and madder at Stimpy, to the point where he's debating killing Stimpy. Because, for one, the creepy factor goes on for quite a bit longer. This episode is 22 minutes long. And two, Ren is mad at Stimpy for something that isn't Stimpy's fault. Think about it. Your best friend wants to kill you because everyone likes you more than him. Also, there's quite the interesting visuals as the animation gets more and more deranged, with Ren's descent into madness. Mental tricks are quite a frightening thing. In this episode, Robin's inflicted with the dust that allows him to see, hear, and feel Slade, his greatest adversary. To top it off, none of Robin's friends can see Slade, making them think that Robin's obsession is leading him further and further into madness. The imaginary fiend idea is a really interesting one, and though it's been explored many times before and in many ways, I don't think that it's been explored quite this well. We see the Phantom lead Robin further and further into what seems like madness. Him getting beaten up by a creature that can't be touched or stopped. And his friends wondering what the hell is going on.
Wear them today. Why not, said Lola. I always wear diamonds when I cook. But there are